From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training Podcast. I'm going to be one of the hosts for this episode. We're going with Bill this time. Who else is hosting?
Vicky.
Wow, don't be so excited.
Yeah, it's been a day. I've worked really hard today, getting ready for fall and purging, and I'm really worn out. So I'll do my best.
Well, okay. All right. Hi, I'm Vicky.
Yeah.
Anyway, Vicky, we have a guest. We have a guest.
We do. We do.
Friend from NASA Great Lakes. He is my HPDE 4 group leader. Is that the right title? I don't know. Sounds like he's the big grand poobah of HPDE 4. And I believe he is in the process of building and developing his new car. And part of that project was we bought his old trailer. So welcome to the podcast, Brandon Wilson.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Yeah, the trailer actually didn't fund the car; it funded the new trailer. So
it's all part of the whole thing, you know. Race cars can't drive the tracks themselves, so
there's some people that would beg to differ, but that's the risky way to go.
Yeah, I like my head versus stainless steel bars. I mean, versus steel bars, not so good. Anyway, Brandon, we were talking before the podcast. You said you'd listen to a few episodes. You know as well as I do, I'm not good at intros. Care to tell anybody anything about yourself, racing, professional, whatevs?
Oh, I'm by no means professional. I got nothing but grassroots background. But as Bill has said, I'm the HPDE 4 leader now for NASA Great Lakes. I took over for Mike Job temporarily last year, and it was just kind of stuck for this year. So been enjoying every bit of it. Been instructing with NASA Great Lakes for probably 6 or 7 seasons now, and been with them for this is my 9th season.
Okay.
Which, you know, sounds like I've been around for a long time, but that's actually a good chunk of my life. I'm only 28, so.
I think you were the first instructor to sit with me in HPDE 2 at Mid-Ohio. So that's
quite possible. I started in NASA, DE1, did that for only a couple of weekends before Eric started plugging me around in DE2, DE3, and then DE4 is more of a recent thing, but it was kind of where do we need people to instruct more than a regular basis. I was only in DE1 for a few weekends before he started moving me around, which wasn't a bad thing. I mean, I think it was more he thought my skill set as an instructor was pretty adaptable. I can do a beginner student all the way to advanced, and there's not a lot of instructors that can necessarily do advanced. So it's more of a skill that is already acquired versus learned. I'm not saying it can't be taught. It's just not as easy as the basics, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So, what about your regular day-to-day real life job and race life and your family life? Can you give us a little background on who you are?
Oh gosh, how much time you got?
Got a lot of tape in this recorder. Don't worry, we're good.
Yeah, no, day to day, I work for General Motors out of the Metro Detroit area. Recently, within the last year, transferred over to our defense division as an integration engineer. Prior to that, I was a CAD junkie, as you call it, computer aided design, 3D modeler, whatever you want to call, on the LLC side. So for commercial cars that, the general consumer can buy. Prior to that, I went to Tryon University. It's a little engineering school in Northeast Indiana that nobody's ever really heard of. It used to be Tri-State. That's when I kind of get some people to know what I'm talking about. But easiest way to tell you is about 40 minutes north of Fort Wayne. I got my bachelor's in design engineering from there, and my master's, my MBA from there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then I mean, if you want to go way back, I grew up in a small town in Indiana. It's where my love for everything with a motor started. I've been riding dirt bikes and four-wheelers since I was like 3 years old.
Well, that's almost our next question. We were going to say, what got you into the racing thing?
It just it's a culmination of things. I mean, my dad was a mechanic for a while before I came along, and then he worked at on and off, I guess, as a mechanic versus a panel operator, etc., at Caterpillar's large engine plant in Lafayette, Indiana. But he kind of taught me everything I knew about working on cars. When I was real little, my parents bought some property and built a house. Like I said, had dirt bikes and four-wheelers. We made our own trails and stuff. And as boys do, we like to see who's the fastest or who can jump the highest, etc. And that kind of set the groundwork, I guess. But what really got me started in auto racing was when I was in school. We had the Society of Automotive Engineers. Well, most schools, they do Formula SAE or Formula Baja or things of that nature. But there'd already been groups that had tried and failed at that. And my school didn't see the benefit in funding a program of that nature anymore. So a professor of mine, which is actually still around in NASA Great Lakes, John Eiler, he happened to petition the board with us and say, hey, well, I'm an instructor with NASA. What if I were to instruct them in just a street car that they take on the track? And he kind of laid it out for them. And they said, okay, well, you're going to have this kind of extra insurance. You're going to need to sign, this entire booklet worth of paperwork. And then as far as the funding, it's still on you guys because we will not fund this. So, I mean, we had to petition student government. We went and talked to local businesses saying, hey, this is what we're doing. My school had pretty good ties with Honda, so we got them to donate a XVen or, non-street legal test vehicle. It was just a 99 Civic. It already had Tony suspension on it and some cozy K1s that Honda themselves had been testing. We had to take the interior out. We put a cage in it, but I had to put like a couple of real cheap Kirkies. I mean, this was total budget build because we were just a bunch of college kids and taking whatever scraps people would give us. But so then, we just started doing NASA DE events, and John Eiler was our instructor for it. And we worked a deal with Jay where, we brought enough volunteers with us outside of our drivers that, that was our entry fee, if you will. So, we'd bring 7 or 8 of us to the track every weekend, and we'd only have 2 drivers. So the rest of them would be helping with grid or tech or black flag, you name it. And then it just kind of stuck. I mean, I did that from sophomore year of college all the way through senior year, and I, haven't left.
Wow.
So would you be a NASA Great Lakes baby, or did you go to other organizations?
Oh no, I actually started with NASA back before it was just Great Lakes. There was still a Midwest, so that's where I started. And then eventually Midwest and Great Lakes were like, well, we go to pretty much all the same events anyways, and just became Great Lakes. They kind of merged into one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've tried other organizations, like I'm part of the performance driving team with GM, where we do autocross events with GM's cars, Corvettes, Camaros, etc. But nothing against them. The SCCA is just not my cup of tea. It's there's some certain things that go on in there that I don't necessarily agree with. But NASA Great Lakes is my home for sure.
Cool. We always say that we spent 1 year just trying all the different series that we could find that would do any kind of instruction, and you kind of find the one where it fits what you want, and the culture is what you want, and the people are who you get along with. So they're different sizes for different people.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know people that love SCCA, so it's it's just whatever you're looking for essentially.
Hmm. Yeah, we just wish the Great Lakes were apparently closer to our house. That would be so much more helpful. But,
Yeah, you guys are out there, but I mean, if anything, that speaks for the region, though, because I mean, we've got several people that are in your boat that specifically come to our events because they like how we run them versus other regions.
yeah,
I mean, like Kevin Colsheen comes in all the way from Lincoln, Nebraska for all of our events.
yeah,
You
it's
got
worth the trip.
Ryan Power that comes in from Buffalo. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we've had people come from as far as Connecticut to come with us to your events, and we're working on some Boston, Massachusetts people. Hopefully next season we'll get them out there. You know, they can have their 24-letter alphabet. We'll see how that goes.
Well,
That's
the
right.
more the merrier.
Exactly.
So what kind of cars do you drive and track?
I've kind of been through the gambit. Like I said, when I started in school, it was a front wheel drive. It was a 99 Civic, nothing special. It's either my junior or senior year of college. I bought a '04 WRX STI. And the naive mind of mine, I had the thought that, oh, I can buy it, track it, and it can be my year-round daily because it has all-wheel drive. You know, negating the fact that Subarus are not the most notoriously reliable. So,
You get good at head
but
gaskets, though.
yeah, thankfully, I'd never had to do anything to it. I mean, you know, I got lucky. And then I traded that one straight up for a C5 Corvette.
Wow.
That's when I got into the rear wheel drive V8 game, and I had intended to make that one into a race car, and then I started working for GM, and I could get a good deal on a brand new Camaro, and I hadn't the wheel to wheel game hadn't really hit me yet. It was more of a just do DE, do time trial. Okay, I can do that with a street car. So I actually sold that to my buddy and current roommate Tyler, which you may know, but and then ended up helping him and my buddy Chris Heinzen turn both of their Corvettes into fully stripped and prepped cars. So Tyler's car actually used to be my street car at one point in time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But when I sold that to him, that was to get money to pay for a 2017 Camaro SS1 LE. And I bought it brand new, drove it for 2 years, and absolutely loved those things. Anybody looking for a fun track car that you can still drive on the street, I mean, I always steer them towards those cars. They're phenomenal.
Yep.
So on your trek through your racing, is there anything you haven't done yet, or anything you haven't still on your list?
Oh, there's a ton. I mean, I've got bucket list tracks I want to hit. Like, I've never been to Daytona, never been to Laguna Seca. I know we just had nationals there and whatnot, but it's just not in the budget. VIR, all the big name IMSA tracks and whatnot. I'd love to drive all of those. I did 24 hours of lemons for a while with a team of four of us. 4 drivers and a few crew members that were, just solid friends that would come around and crew for us. But that was fun, but we were always competitive, and lemons is kind of more of the just come out, have fun. So I got out of that. But I'd love to do endurance racing again. It's a lot of fun. It is
a lot of fun. You get to bang for your buck.
You get your bang for your buck, and then you really get to know the car and know the track you're at. Because I mean, we were driving a 91 Prelude, and it sips gas, right? So you'd be in the car for 2.5 hours, depending on the weather and all that. So I mean, you get a lot of time to just sit and figure it out. Plus, if you've ever done a lemons event, there's times when we were at Gingerman or Audubon South, and there's 100 cars that start the race. So you get really good at situational awareness and traffic management.
Yep. I mean, we always make a joke that at a lemons race, the line is something that's always, over there somewhere with somebody on it. But, eventually after a couple hours, you actually get to hit the line on most of the turns, at least a couple times,
The attrition rate starts to kick in as long as it's a nice hot day, and you start to get some clear track.
Exactly.
I will say we were at Audubon South one time for a lemons race, and it was torrential downpours all weekend.
Sounds like Audubon.
They maybe lost 3 cars. I mean, we started the race with 100 some odd cars, and we ended with 100 some odd cars. It was insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
And
thought you meant
the
they lost
craziest
them.
part is, oh no, no. I
They
thought we were
washed
going to
away.
lose more. I thought we were going to lose more. I mean, we were coming down the back straight out of Patience to take the start for Sunday's race, because they don't do true 24s anymore,
Right.
for the most part. But so for Sunday's race, I was taking the green, and we're coming down the back straight. And there's a field of cars in front of me, and all I can see is mist. Well, I get green over the radio. So it's like, all right, here we go. And we're barreling in towards 11. I'm still not seeing any brake lights or nothing. It's like, well, I know we're getting close, and sure as hell, there's a bright sea of red through the mist. It's like, okay, that's my braking point.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Lemons is a beast unto its own with that traffic density, but it's still fun.
Right.
Well, it's the traffic density, the skill set differential. I mean, you got people that have been doing racing for 20, 30 years, and you got others that have never been on a track before. I mean, that's both the beauty and downside of Lemons. Is if you want to go racing, it's a really cheap, easy way to try and figure it out. But it's also, not necessarily great for people like myself that want to be competitive and do the full on endurance racing. So it's a trade off. But I still wouldn't trade it for anything, because the skills I learned there were detrimental. I mean,
yeah.
You start to look for twitches in cars that you think might or might not see you, and you start to really learn the body language of different drivers. You can actually assess who does or doesn't know what the hell's going on. I mean, you start to pick up on the little idiosyncrasies, right? And it's a skill set that I wouldn't trade for anything.
Yeah, the two things we always say about Lemons is what Lemons is, and if you try to make it into something else, you're going to fail. But you just take it for what it is and enjoy it, and you always got to go and find. It's just like the NASA Great Lakes versus other series. You got to find the series that fits you, and Lemons has certain things that fit us, and we go to other series for other things depending on what you're looking for. So,
right.
But card body language is huge. I remember a few times my daughter's just about to get her permit. I'm driving down the street, and I'm like, "You see that car right there?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "He does not know we're here, and he is going to get in our lane." And like, and she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, just watch. And here they come. So it is what it is. But
oh yeah,
at least people don't race in Lemons with an iPhone. But anyway, that's a different story.
You'd be surprised. We were in a pretty heated battle in B class one time at Gingerman, and the car that was ahead of us, they had no issues the entire race, and we had, I don't remember why we had a longer stop, but we had like a 10-minute longer stop than we had anticipated. Oh, we had to fix an exhaust hanger with some baling wire. That's what it was. But so we had stopped longer, and we had the lead. Well, then they got some time on us. So our last driver had been chipping away, and come the last like 2 laps of the race, we'd actually caught him and then gotten taken out by another car that it was just a lapped out of class car that didn't see us. But when we were talking to the guy after the race, he's like, "Yeah, my crew, they kept texting me, and they had their phone like zip tied to the dash for communication, like for when to pit and whatnot. Yeah, when to pit or whatever." And all he said, all he kept seeing pop across the notification screen was prelude, and it just got progressively more, like it started out just prelude, all lowercase, and then it was uppercase, and then there was exclamation points. Like, dude, the prelude.
Yeah.
But so yeah, you say people don't have iPhones, but they do.
I guess I'm at an age where you can zip tie an iPhone to my dash, and I'm not going to be able to read it. So I don't know. Anyway,
gotta have the cheaters on.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, need at least progressive bifocals or something to get there.
You should see if they make those in helmet visors. if not, that's the next $1 million idea right there.
There we go.
Visors.
The provisional patent will be filed before this gets let out, so don't worry.
there you go.
We might actually make money from this racing game finally, or the podcast might make money. Who knew?
Oh, hey, I require 3%. It was my idea.
Yeah.
No worries. We'll take care of you. And everything after the break even fees we'll split. Not a problem.
Beautiful.
So, Miss Vicky, your favorite question of all time?
Oh yeah. we're moving on to philosophy.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like to hear about what drivers tell themselves or tell their students, like a philosophy or a motto, or what do you kind of.
Something better than don't suck.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I've mentioned it before. Mine was, I paid to be here too. As
Well,
I'm muscling through traffic.
I mean, you're not wrong. You paid there. I mean, sometimes I'll joke with my students if they made a mistake and go off in the grass. It's, well, you paid to use the track. You're just using all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, I guess the philosophies are different though. I kind of cater each philosophy to each student.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ken Deja, anytime he tells stories about me instructing him in DE1, it was always just patience, patience. Because he had a he came from an autocross background, so he had a tendency that if he wasn't on the brakes, he was on the gas, or if he was getting on the gas, it was real aggressively, or it's so I kind of cater it to each student. Like myself, though, I guess my thing I always tell myself on grid, or when I'm waiting for us to be released or waiting for the green flag, is you only got to make it through one turn at a time. Take it one turn at a time. But I mean, obviously, it's not as simple as that. But as long as I keep myself in that mindset, I don't get the red mist. I don't get the adrenaline rush over the norm. I guess I don't get too overexcited, and I stay nice and focused. It's it's one turn at a time. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, I find something similar. It's like the last turn doesn't matter, and the next turn is the most important turn ever. Just keep,
Well,
just
I mean,
keep going.
It's like the famous race. You can't win the race in the first turn, but you can sure as hell lose it, right? So all you got to do is just make it through one turn at a time.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So Brandon, you are we're going with Poobah. You have the official title. You're the Poobah of NASA Great Lakes HPDE 4. So just for everybody at home, HPDE 4 is kind of in the HPDE ladder for NASA. 1 is beginners and 4 is the upper level. And then you could go to comp school or things like that. But 4 is kind of the limit for the HPDEs. So I guess in your mind, who would be like the ideal incoming HPD student for you? What do you think they would be doing, and what do you think they would be kind of needing to get into to be like ideal ready for 4? Besides Robin saying it's good.
You mean fresh from 3s coming to me?
It's 3.9 coming into 4 for the first time.
Oh, that's a good one.
I mean, I'm right here. You can use my name. It's fine. But
No. I haven't had 4s much with you. You were there for like one event and then you were gone. So
we live far.
Yeah, that's no excuse.
We are resuming next season.
Yeah.
NASA Great Lakes is priority 1.
That's good to hear. We'll be looking forward to seeing you guys back. But no, the main things that I'm looking for or hope that I can get when they're coming from 3s to 4s is they've got their situational awareness down. I don't have to worry about somebody being in their mirrors too much. I mean, granted, if we have a fresh 3.9 to 4, it still happens because some people get in their heads like, oh man, I'm in the 4s now. They're going to run me over. When realistically, 99% of them have the pace right out the gate. They just don't have the confidence yet.
Mm-hmm.
But usually that goes away after a couple of sessions. They realize, oh, well, I guess I do belong here, right?
Yep.
But so I look for the situational awareness because that's something that can easily get somebody in trouble in DE4 land, especially with some of the drills we do. And then I prefer, it doesn't always happen, but I prefer students that aren't overly confident. There's a difference between being confident in your abilities and being overly confident. And I'm not saying they're wrong about their abilities, but there's sometimes when it's hard to break through that wall of, hey, I know I'm younger than you, and I may not seem like I know what I'm talking about, but trust me, this will help you.
Yep.
And that sometimes it takes me writing with them, or specifically like me talking in their ear, and having them try something before they'll trust me. And an example of that would be, and I'm sure he doesn't mind me sharing this because he shares it in downloads all the time, but would be Dan Mametti. When he first got to threes, he thought he knew everything. He thought he was ready to go. He was ready for fours. He was ready to race. I hopped in the car with him and was just working on some start and end of breaking points. And I do this drill that I like to do. And I walk it through with the students on grid just so it's not cold turkey, right? But basically they're breaking too soon and too much. And I want, or too late and too much, excuse me. I want them to break sooner and get off sooner and carry the speed through the corner so that the tires scrub that last little bit of mile an hour, right? So the way that I get them to do this is I don't want you to brake until I say, and when I say off the brakes, you get off the brakes and you turn into the corner. So, picture we're coming into turn 1 at Mid-Ohio. I'll be in their ear, just not yet, not yet, not yet, now. That's when they hit the brakes. And then I let them get through their braking point and okay, off the brakes. I try to keep the chatter to a minimum and they turn in. Well, so I'd been doing that with Dan, and we'd been doing it in turn 1. And I usually pick the lower risk corners, such as turn 1 to start. And then, once they start getting it down, I take it to the more high risk corners, like say China Beach.
Right.
So we'd tried China Beach a couple of times, and he was getting it down. Well, then I famously will say, okay, you're showing me how to do it this time, and I'm not going to give you any input. So we got that long stretch from Keyhole to China Beach, right? I'm telling him, China Beach is on you. I'm not telling you when to brake, not telling you when to turn in. He blew that brake point, and we damn near sailed it into the beach, but he somehow saved it with just like a slight drift through the grass. And then after that, he was the model student. He's been more than receptive. He listens. So that's kind of what it takes with those sometimes. But I mean, to circle back, that digression we talked about.
That's why we're here.
But basically, awareness and just be open to instruction. Don't come in thinking that you know everything, because I can about guarantee you don't, because I don't, Eric Meyer doesn't, you don't, etc. So those are the two big ones. The rest of it I can usually kind of sort out. Line is easy to sort. Braking and gas inputs, usually they've got them mostly down, but there's still some slight tweaking possibly. By the time they get to me, Robin has them pretty well polished, and it's just little knob tweaks here and there more than anything. Like they might have the whole course down, but they're screwing up Keyhole or whatever, or maybe they're just being too abrupt off the brakes. That's all stuff that I can sort through. They're usually mostly polished by the time they get to me, but the situational awareness and the openness to instruction are my two big ones.
When I go into 4,
she's coming.
I know.
Hey,
I
on, bring it.
I am. What am I going to learn?
So when you come into 4s,
brand
you're
new,
learn
brand new,
fresh from 3s. You've killed it in 3s. You've showed Robin you can do it all. So when you come into 4s, the first thing that you'll learn is we don't do a download after every session anymore, because we have a lot of instructors that they're doing DE1, but they're also doing time trial, or they may also be racing, or whatever. And schedule isn't always friendly to 4s because we try to cater to the 1s, right? So we started doing downloads. We do our morning meeting, and then we won't have another meeting until lunchtime, when we really start doing the more difficult drills that require some instruction, particularly for the newbies, such as yourself would be in this situation. So morning meeting is, hey everybody, welcome, who are you, what do you drive? First session is going to be at this time. Second session we're going to do typically it's nose to tail drill. I cater the drills to walk up the skill set, get everybody comfortable with each other, so that come third session Sunday when we're doing our 3 wide drill, everybody's pretty comfortable, right? So first session's always a warm up. Second session is nose to tail, which the way that I instruct it is, if you and your partner are going around the course, you're going to be nose to tail on the straights. And if the trailing car can't see where the leading car's tires meet the pavement, or if they can, excuse me, they are too far away. They need to be closer. So if I can see where your tires meet the pavement, I'm too far away. I need to get closer.
That sounds terrifying, but it
So
sounds fun.
so
It
much
sounds
fun.
exhilarating.
So
Sounds
much fun.
exhilarating.
It's a lot of fun, and it starts to set up for, like, the next drill will be, it used to be complete the pass drill, but now I've kind of turned that into a over under drill. Which, you know, if you're familiar with an over under move, it's where you've got 2 guys that have been dogfighting for lap after lap after lap. The guy behind is getting frustrated. He's tried everything. Screw it, I'm going to late break you into this corner and I'm going to get by you, right?
Yep.
Problem is they outbreak themselves and end up sailing it either off the corner or barely save it by rim shot in the edge of the corner, right? So the car being passed, if you start to recognize that, you can brake just a little bit sooner and readjust your line to where after that car sails by, you tuck underneath, you hit your apex perfect, and you're off to the races, and that guy's left to, you know, deal with his poor decisions, right? So instead of doing a complete the pass drill, which I'll still throw it in pending the people that are there. If I have a lot of newbies, I'll switch it out for complete the pass, but I've got a lot of veteran 4s that I've tried to switch the drills up a little bit, so it's not the same thing every weekend, right? But so that's usually the third session of the day drill. Fourth session, it's usually combined with 3s, so we'll either do the same drill that Robin does. If it's a small enough set of groups that we haven't had for a few weekends, where it's only going to be like 30 cars on course, we'll do a quali/TT drill, as we call it. So Robin and I like to set it up to where your third lap is your fastest lap of the session. And you have to set yourself up for that to happen. So if I'm taking the first 2 laps easy, my tires and brakes may not be warmed up enough to set that fastest lap on the third lap. How can I get my tires and brakes warmer for the next time? Or how do I set up the last corner onto the front straight so that I get the absolute most mile per hour come the first corner to start that lap? So, I mean, that's where a lot of people really don't think about it, is you don't always necessarily want to take the correct line coming out of the last corner onto the front straight, because it may not equate to the most mile per hour by turn 1. And that sounds counterintuitive, but in this situation, it's not going to equate to the fastest lap if I were to take that line to finish my quali lap, because I'm going to be struggling, right? But if I kind of rim shot the last corner and really get on it, I could get a pretty good chunk of mile an hour by elongating that straight to start that lap, right? So that's another thing that some people figure out. I also don't want to be right on the bumper of the car in front of me unless I'm confident. Like, say I'm in a Corvette and I've got a Miata in front of me, I'm confident I can get by them by the end of the front straight so that I can still set up to take turn 1 properly. If I've got a fairly evenly matched car, I want to back off by, I don't know, 8 or 9 car lengths, because then even if they botch a corner, I shouldn't catch them by the end of the lap, and I should still be able to finish a good quali lap, right?
Right.
But so we've got a lot of people in DE3 and DE4 that have aspirations to go to TT or go to race group, and that's why we've done that drill. If we have a small enough group, is you need that skill, right? But nobody teaches that skill. So how do we do that? We start making a drill. Which there's been a lot of DE4 graduates that have gone to TT and race group that are like, man, I'm glad we had that, because I would have been chasing my tail had we not, you know? So And then let's say we get to Sunday morning is, I never do any drills on first session of the day. People might be hungover from the night before because they partied too much at the Saturday night dinner. Maybe they were wrenching on their car all night, because they broke something Saturday, and they didn't get a lot of sleep. So first session is always shake the cobwebs out, get yourself warmed up, get the car warmed up, and kind of get back into a rhythm. Right? There's no drill. It's ease into the day. Second session kind of alternates. Sometimes it's a quality TT lap because we didn't get to do it the day before. Sometimes we had some weather where we couldn't do the over under. So the second session Sunday is usually, I won't say a toss up, but kind of a toss up. It usually is the one that gets switched around the most. And sometimes, maybe we didn't get to do a drill the day prior because of XYZ. So I moved the drill from Sunday to there that would, fit that session and then move it around. Right. So it just kind of depends. And then third session Sunday, you've had 6 sessions throughout the weekend. You've gotten comfortable with your fellow drivers. You probably knew some from your DE3 days, but most of them from your DE3 days have probably moved on to TT or race group, right? So you've got to learn all the drivers and the cars that are in that group now. By the time you've had 6 sessions on track, you should know at least 70% of them and how they're driving, right?
Okay.
So the big thing with DE4s versus 3s is we do point by as recommended but not required. It's basically open passing anywhere. It could be on corner entry, corner exit, on a straight, doesn't matter. You guys are advanced enough that you can do it, right? Well, I still err on the side of needing a point by if you don't recognize the car, blah blah blah. It's just my spiel to try to keep people from having contact, because we don't like contact in race group. We really don't like it in DE. But so coming into third session Sunday, you know that your fellow drivers, you know who sees you and who doesn't, you know how each driver typically likes to take a corner, et cetera, et cetera. So that's when we do our 3 wide, and this is going to be a mouthful, but 3 wide close proximity drill started by a green flag.
That's what we're calling it now? Okay. I'll go with that.
That's what we're calling it now. And I, because I know some people may hear this podcast, I won't go into reasons why.
That's fine.
But
you're assuming people listen to this podcast, but thank you.
Well, hey, you throw it up on the DE3 plus and all that. I'm sure people still listen. Don't sell yourself short.
I gotta write more checks soon.
But so let's talk it through at Mid Ohio, since everybody here is familiar with Mid Ohio. So Mid Ohio is unique where the races are always started on the back straight, because if you start them on the front straight, you're going to have half your field in carousel, and it's going to be a dumpster fire.
Right.
So you go out on your out lap, and I always have a leader / pace setter that's going to keep the group all bunched up, right? Because if my leader takes off and we still got people coming off grid, it gums up the whole works. So I pick somebody, and as of late, I've been getting a volunteer and then just telling them how to do it. We haven't had an issue thus far. But so they go out, they keep a, 45, 50 mile an hour pace. And I tell them, always watch your mirrors as you're coming through keyhole, look to your right and see how many people you still got coming out of the blend line, because you can see all the way to pit out as you're coming down the back straight. Make sure everybody gets bunched up. They take their out lap as they're coming up into keyhole. That's when I have them form up 3 wide. And the biggest gripe is you got all these people that I don't want to be stuck in the middle. And it gums it up, because then you got a bunch of rows of 2 wide with a big gap in the center, and that's not how it's designed, right? So I always have to give the spiel at the download prior. If Bill takes left and Vicky takes right, and I'm the next in line, I am in the middle. Period. The end. I don't care if you wanted to be right side. I don't care if you wanted to be left side. You have the middle, and then the next person gets their pick of the gambit, so on and so forth. I want a whole line of rows of 3, right? So we're now 3 wide. We're coming down to the starter stand, and we're cruising at about 40 mile an hour. Starter stand throws the green. Everybody takes off. And then after that, it's just a normal session. Everybody sorts themselves out. They're all bunched up. It usually takes 2-3 laps for everybody to kind of find where they belong within the group. And I don't set it up by speed. I don't set it up by fast cars front, nothing like that. You've got Miatas that have been in the front row before with Mustangs and Corvettes and, prototypes and all other kinds of stuff that have been in the middle and the back. So you get a big speed differential, but what that does is it gets you comfortable with close proximity, which we've already done drills through DE3, and the drills that I do in DE4 help get you comfortable with that, right? But you're getting comfortable with close proximity, you're getting comfortable with speed differentials. So some people may see the green sooner than others, and then you have to react, right? So say you're in front of me and I get a really good jump on the green, but you were sleeping on it, I might have to dive to the right, or where is my out, right? So that's something I always preach to my guys, is always give yourself an out. And that's not just for this drill, that's for, taking passes. If you don't know the car, if you are unsure if they see you, but you've been behind them for a few turns and you think you can make the pass, okay, stick your nose in, but give yourself an out. I don't care if that's dive into the grass to the left. I don't care if that's braking enough, or leaving yourself enough brakes to where you can still back out of the pass if they chop your nose off, etc. But give yourself an out. And then that just relays into this drill itself, right? So if I'm in the middle and the car in front of me is sleeping, unless somebody is Moses and magically parts the Red Seas, I'm kind of stuck where I'm at, right? But if I'm on the inside or outside and the car in front of me is sleeping, I can dive to the left or the right, put 2 tires in the grass if I so choose. Probably a little aggressive for DE, but the option's there. But I always go up onto the spectator point and watch this drill happen, so that I can see who does what, and then use that as an example for the next download, right? Like, hey, you did this, why'd you do it? And having them talk through their mindset triggers other people to say, oh, well, that's why I did that over here. I was like 5 rows back and I did the same thing. Or, man, I wish I could have done that because I had the same problem and I just stayed where I was, right? So I use what I visually see to call people out, and then it's not as a bad thing, right? It's just to get the conversation sparked and get everybody organically talking in the downloads after, right? So there's also some other drills that we've done a late breaking drill, things of that nature, but we haven't done those in a while because they just don't seem to work. So I've got some others that I'll probably try and fine tune over the winter that I haven't implemented yet, and then we'll try them next year. But that's an overall overview of if you were a fresh 4, what you could expect out of a typical weekend.
Right.
Captain's log supplemental.
So, Miss Vicky.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember when we were watching those WRL events and some of those grid life events where you used to see the in-car video and it had like the cameras seeing front and back, but it also could see all the telemetry and everything that was going on? Most of the ones that we liked were taken by the Sentinel system. Remember James came on our podcast earlier?
Right.
We have no excuse since he lent us one for trial and demonstration purposes. We should actually probably put that in one of our cars, maybe 2.
I really think we should.
I think we should.
I know.
Because then we'd look like the immature endurance racing team that we are. Oh, wait, I mispronounced that, didn't I? Sorry, my bad. We could
so what does the Sentinel system do?
We could have 3 cameras with picture-in-picture. We could have, if we ever get the AIM system to work, open invitation to anybody from AIM to come on and give us a little bit of love. We need some help. And then we could have all our telemetry on there. and then we can have it streamed live into the paddock or around the world to our millions of fans. We're apparently very popular in Kenya right now. Don't know why, but that's fine. And it can integrate all the available race statistics from like Race Hero and everything. So we could actually see how we're doing on video. We wouldn't even have to carry around our phone anymore. Live.
I love it.
So let's look at what 4 is going to set you up for. What do you think the participants in 4 are ready for after? What would their paths or several paths be that they could choose once they're done or pretty well accomplished in 4?
I mean, they can pretty much go anywhere that they're confident going, right? So we've got some people that are what we call forever 4s, which is fine. They are perfectly fine bringing their car to the track, driving around. Most of them are instructors as well, and then that's where they're happy, and that's perfectly fine. Should they ever decide they want to do advanced to time trials or wheel to wheel later, I'd say 99% of them I'd have no issues with.
Right.
You know, we've started doing catered data reviews and video reviews and one-on-one stuff with the ones that are interested or ask for it. And it's not just, you know, we wait for somebody to ask. We openly express that, hey, we're willing to do this for anybody that wants it. And, you know, you'd be surprised how little people show interest or want it. But, you know, I mean, the drills that we set up all the way through our system, and by the time they're done with 4s, they could go time trials, they could go wheel to wheel, they could do the Trek races, no problem. I mean, they could pretty much go wherever they wanted. Now, I'm not going to say that, you know, everybody that comes out of 4s is rock stars and could go pro, but it's more, the limiting factor is the driver's ambitions and or imagination at that point. You know, how bad do you want to go to wherever it is? Okay, I've given you the groundwork to do that. And then, you know, they're, like I say, the drivers that express they want data review or they want video review, that's where we really get to amplify some of the skills that some of these guys are getting. But again, that relays back to what are the drivers' ambitions? How bad do they want to go to whatever their goal is?
Mm-hmm.
Usually the ones that want it really, really bad, those are the ones that are coming to us saying, hey, how do I get faster? I feel like I'm really sucking in this corner. Can you show me what I'm doing wrong? Or I don't think the car is handling the way I want it to. Okay, let's dive into that. And that's where I keep like the Ross Bentley little flip through booklet.
Yep.
I keep that on hand with me just so I can show them like, hey, okay, you said your car's understeering, right? Flip through, flip through, flip through. Here's understeer. Is it understeering mid corner, exit, entry? Where's it at? It's everywhere. Okay, flip through here. Have you tried, you know, tightening your rear bar or adjusting your shocks or et cetera, et cetera? Well, I don't have any of those options. Okay, well, is this a car you intend to move forward with? Well, yeah. Maybe you need to start looking at those options as some tuning tools. Maybe you need to get an adjustable bar. Maybe you need to get, you know, 1 or 2 way adjustable coilovers, you know, and I don't say that this is the absolute, you got to do it, but it's like, you know, these are, as you get into this world, these are the knobs that now become available to you once you get the driving skills down and can actually assess what the car is doing. Because if a DE1 driver came to me and said, the car won't turn. Okay, is it understeering? Is it, you know, what's it doing? I don't know. It just won't turn. The tires squeal really loud, right? So, and that's not to knock on the DE1 student. It's just they don't know what they don't know, right? And then we slowly teach them this stuff as they progress through the system. So by the time they get to 4s, they roughly know what should be happening, and they have the inputs mostly down to where we can kind of start having those conversations, right? We can say, okay, well, where is it understeering? Why do you think it is? How much wheel are you putting in? Well, I'm only putting in about 15 degrees. Well, really, your data says you're putting in 40. You know, things of that nature. But you know, that's the stuff that I won't say you can't do with a DE1 student, but that's almost
right.
Information overload to where you kind of have to wait until the skills are more developed before you can really start having those conversations, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure.
So, what skills do you see? think mostly typically to separate, say, a 3.9 to a 4.9 driver.
To a 4.9. Okay, so that's braking all day long. In HPDE 3, we teach them high roll speed entry and whatnot, but something we don't always focus on unless a driver specifically asks for more one-on-one coaching than the other DE3s is it's braking. They're too focused on, oh, I gotta brake as late as possible. I don't know where I'm getting off the brakes, but I know I'm carrying the speed through the corner because the tires are squealing and I know I'm doing right. We try to dial that out in threes a little bit. We can't always get to all of them. Some of them don't want an instructor to ride with them. They think they're doing fine. So that doesn't always get weeded out in threes by the time I get them in fours. So by the time I get them in fours, that's where we really start focusing on, you're using too much of the brakes. You need to get them off them sooner. You can, and if you don't think you can get off them sooner, then that's where we start talking about start of braking and end of braking point. Maybe you're just purely braking too late. That's not usually the case. Usually they're braking too soon or too much, and that's where we start talking, okay, don't brake till I say off the brakes and turn in when I say that kind of drill, right? That's where that really flushes that all out. And a lot of times you'll have people that don't actually understand the capabilities of their car, and they haven't been able to assess that. Prime example I use is my friend Leslie. I was riding along with her at Autobahn, and we were coming through 13 and 14 right there before you take that little left-hander onto the front straight. And I basically treat 13, 14 as one continuous corner. You technically have two air quote corners, but it's really one continuous corner. And she drives a little NA Miata, nothing crazy. It's got some stiff suspension and they aren't slicks, but they're not street tires. I think they're G-Force rivals, something of that nature. But she was braking, and not just braking, but braking fairly heavily coming into 13, and in a Miata of that nature, you pretty much don't need to brake. You just got to lift. And if you've got sticky Hoosiers, you may not even need to lift. You may just need to crack the throttle a little bit. So with her, we were doing the not yet, now. And because she's my friend and I know she would be able to handle it, we're coming in and I'm like, not yet. And I just didn't say anything, because if I'd left her to her own devices, she would have still broke, right? Well, so she didn't break, and all I hear through my microphone transmitter is, and then she turns and we made the corner. And I was like, hey, look, you don't need brakes. That was scary. It's like, yeah, but look, you can do it. She's like, I won't be doing that again. Right. But then she did it without me in the car. And she's like, okay, it's not as bad as it seemed. Right. But braking is a safety net, right? Braking is what everybody uses to make sure they're in control. And that's the thing where, in control is still feasible without using the brakes as much as you think you need to, right? Because your tires are scrubbing that last couple mile an hour. And if you end up in an moment, you can softly apply the brakes or whatever and still make sure you're okay, right? I'm not saying you need to go out there and hair on fire, etc. But there's 9 times out of 10 when a DE 3.9 comes to me, that's what we have to work on. And then by the time they're leaving as a 4.9, they've got it down if they've asked for my help. I'm not saying everybody does, and that's where we can't help everyone. That's a tough conversation we have as leaders all the time, is not everybody wants the help, and you can't force them to take the help, right? So as long as they're safe, that's where we're fine moving them through the ranks. If they're not wanting to listen, right? You can't make everybody Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, right? You just can't. If they don't want it, we can't force it. But as long as we can enforce the safety aspect of it, and we can know for certain that if we send these people on, are they going to be slow? Maybe, but are they going to be safe? For sure. So I think I got out of outside your question a little bit, but I think
No.
I answered mostly.
No, I think the answer is great. So, in your mind, what type of car or car prep is needed for an HPDE 4?
That kind of all depends, right? So I mean, we've still got people like Jeff Halverson that come with a full street car. He still drives his GT3 to the track, and in that aspect, there's really not a lot of prep. You make sure your brake fluid is good. If you're running a good .4, maybe like SRF, you hardly have to touch that stuff because even its wet boiling point is so high. But if you're running like an RBF or lesser brake fluid, if you will, it could be beneficial to bleed the fluid and get some fresh fluid down to the calipers, get some of that gunky stuff out of there, and get some fresh fluid in the mix. Check your tires, make sure they're not wearing them properly, or maybe you need to flip them on the rim. Something that if you're a Jeff Halverson type driver, you should probably be checking anyways, since you're driving it to and from the track. Just give it a good once over. Make sure there's no drips or leaks that have shown up out of nowhere. Sometimes seals like to fail, even though they weren't showing anything, at the track, or they weren't showing any signs when they were in the trailer. It had time to contract and cool off. You just started it up, and maybe a leak developed. Right? Those are just the bare minimum. Then you got people that are bringing fully prepped track cars that they've been coming through the DE ranks with, and they want to go hit wheel to wheel swinging. So they've made sure that they've brought their fully stripped cage car through all the DE sessions so that they know it ins and outs and everything. Right? Well, that's when things are usually a little harsher. You've got stiffer suspension, you've got like spherical bearings and things of that nature in your suspension components. You've got hardened bushings and things of that nature that may or may not like to wear out. Maybe you don't have the hardened bushings and you've got a stiff suspension and you're still rocking rubber bushings. That's something you'd really want to keep an eye on, right? Because you're adding harshness to the ride quality of the vehicle, but not necessarily what those rubber bushings were designed for.
Right.
You've got brake rotors that you're putting a lot of heat and stress through. Be checking those for cracks, which technically, I guess, even in the Jeff Halversons of the side of the spectrum, you should be doing that there too, because you're inducing a lot of heat cycles into those rotors, and over time they're going to crack and wear. Right.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's cheaper if they didn't, though.
God, if you could make one out of unobtainium and they were $20,000 a set, but you'd never have to change them, I would heavily consider it.
Exactly.
But for your fully prepped cars, especially ones with cages, you don't need to do it before every weekend, but a couple times a season, just check your welds, make sure nothing's cracked. It's being used, it's being fatigued, it's being twisted on. Eventually, even roll cages are consumable and they'll need repaired. They won't need replaced, but they'll need repaired.
Right.
That's why we always recommend painting roll cages in a light color, not black. That's easy to see cracks, because black can hide cracks.
Mm-hmm.
Check your harnesses, make sure they're in date. You don't have any frays that have come up from being moved around, fastened, unfastened. Same with your seats. Make sure they haven't developed any cracks. Once you get a fully prepped car, you almost need to have, or at least I would recommend, a checklist, a pre-flight checklist, if you will, before leaving for the track, and then also before going to grid every session. Like for me, I check my pressures and my tires. I check my oil, because LSs and V8s like to consume oil when they're being revved real high. Knock on wood. My current car, my Vet, has not been consuming pretty much any oil, other than I developed a valve cover leak at Mid Ohio when we were there last, so I was spraying a bit out, but it wasn't burning any.
It was a friendly spray, though.
Yeah, it wasn't much. It wasn't even showing up on the dipstick between sessions. It was just enough that I noticed a little bit inside the engine bay towards the end of the weekend. But no, so I check my pressures, I check my oil, I torque my lugs. Nobody wants to lose a wheel. Not to put him on blast, but James Wheeler, he lost a wheel at Autobahn and ended up sitting on the front straight in the torrential rain while everybody else finished the race.
Wow.
Nobody wants to do that.
Nope. Makes for a bad ride home.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily he was able to get it up and running for the last race, but we joked with him that because Susan wasn't there that weekend, the lugs didn't get torqued.
Mhm.
Oh no.
It's rather funny with his last name, especially so. So,
But yeah, it just varies from car to car.
so don't need slicks, don't have to be caged. I can drive anything from a fully caged brace prep to a street car still in HPD4.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, when I had my Camaro, I drove that thing to and from the track, and all I did was put a track alignment on it and make sure I brought, extra oil and random fluids just in case, but I never had to do anything. I mean, I always had an extra set of pads on me because it was a almost 4,000-pound car and they're hard on brakes, but I never had to do a pad change at the track, which was fine. I hate wrenching at the track, but
yeah,
no, you can bring a street car straight to the track. Just make sure you know what brake fluid's in it, because a lot of OEMs will put not the cheapest .3, but they'll put a lower .3 in it because it saves them cost, right?
Yep.
And then if you look in any sports car manual, you'll see like all of our Corvettes and Camaros. If you intend to track this vehicle, make sure you flush fluid for .4.
Yep.
But no, I mean, you can bring a street car to the track, no problem. I mean, shoot, Eric Meyer, he'll still take his diesel Audi on track just to help a DE1 student see a line or something. No prep at all with that one, which I wouldn't recommend the no prep portion, but I mean, that's a big, heavy diesel car, and he still hucks it around. I mean, you can bring anything.
Yeah, he just likes closing everybody's rearview mirrors while he's going by.
Yep, he sure does. Yeah, there's a picture floating around somewhere. He and we were trying to get some side-by-side drill video, and he reached out of the driver's seat and slapped the side of my car because we were so close.
Mm-hmm. He does it quite often.
Mm-hmm.
I like his slow fades into you is always fun.
Oh yeah, just squeezing you over.
Just a little squeeze, just a little loving, little.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I'm here. No, I'm really here. No, really, I'm here. Yeah, it's fun. It's always.
Oh yeah.
He's first time. So I guess one of the things that I really liked was and I'm hoping Vicky gets to see it, like Leslie you talked about before. When you're going through the HPD ladder, you kind of get a graduating class. Like it's not like school where you do everything, but you kind of tend to stay in the same group and graduate together. Like Leslie's part of the class for me. She was one of the people I went through with, and it gives you that familiarity you have with how they drive and what car they have, and you kind of help each other. And that's one of the things that I really liked about the Great Lakes HPDE ladder. So that was quite good.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I was. I mentioned earlier. If you've been around the system for a while, you end up coming through the system with the same people. So by the time you're in 3s and 4s, you pretty much know everybody that's there, and you've only got to get used to a handful of vehicles. So that's where, especially in that instance, you don't even need till the 7th session on Sunday to know who is good and who's not. You usually know a couple sessions in because you've been around everybody else, and you just have to assess the last 2-3%, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think the biggest change that I noticed, besides going from 3 to 4, it was in 3 I got really comfortable, and wouldn't almost stop talking, and then in 4 I was like back of the room, didn't say a word, got on track the first time. Oh my God, these guys are freaking fast. And then, it got a little better after the first day. I was like sitting there going, I should go back to 3. I should go back to 3. Oh my God, these guys are fast. Because when I went to 4 the first time, we were still just coming out of COVID. So 4 had gotten bottled up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the 4.9s are like 4.999s. And I just came in there with my little stock Toyota 86. And I was just like, okay. This is a lot of meat out here, and I'm going to get eaten up. But it was fun though. Had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Hey, you're
go
the
ahead.
ones I like to pick on in the downloads. If you're hiding in the back and you don't want to say something, I actually will pick on you and say, "Hey, what do you think?" Just to
Yeah.
get you talking and get you comfortable with the group, because it works okay if I'm just standing up talking at you, but it works so much better if you hear from your peers and you have that organic conversation of, well, I take turn one and I break it to three, but you said you break it to two. What kind of car do you have? How are you breaking it to two? Well, I have a Toyota 86 and you have a Toyota 86. Did you change the brakes? Did you change the tires? We're running the same stuff. Well, shit, that means I should be able to break it to two. That kind of
Yeah.
conversation, right? I can give tidbits and kind of steer it in certain directions, but
Mhm.
when everybody's talking and giving their own input, that's when it really flows and you really get the learning environment going, right?
Yeah. The other thing that helped was I got paired up with another 86, and you'll know who it is, but it was a white one, and he was just wiping the floor with me, and I'm like, I don't belong here. I do not belong here. I do not belong here. He's so much better than I am. I thought I was going good through the turn, but we came out of the turn and whoosh, he was gone. And I'm like, it's killing me. And then, like the third session finishes, I go over, I'm talking to him, and he's like, yeah, it's a V8 swap. I'm like, damn it. I
I was gonna
needed that
say, was it
information.
Eric?
Yeah, it was Eric. He was just taking my heart and dashing it against the wall. It was hilarious. But yeah, he's a good guy too.
Oh yeah.
So Brandon, if people sound like they want to get involved with this, some of them may already be ready for HPDE 4, some of them may be just thinking about getting started and they want to go to a Great Lakes HPDE event and see what this is like. Do you have the next couple for this year? I think we got a few more left.
Yeah, we'll be at Audubon first week into October, so September 30th through October 2nd. And then we will be at the National Corvette Museum towards the end of October. It's not the last month or last weekend of October. I think it's actually like the weekend of the 22nd this year.
Yeah, it's not Halloween weekend this year.
No, normally it is, but
Yep.
this year they moved it up. But
Yeah,
so
don't
yeah,
do
we'll
things on Halloween weekend. There's a lot of stuff goes on Halloween. There's family.
Especially when it's 15 hours away, sir.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. Well, hey, I don't have any say in that one. That's all Jay and his guys. That's not me.
Oh, I know. So
But
yeah, I'll be making NCM this year, so it's a good one. I'll be back. Can't get rid of me without this whole year, so I'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
good. Looking forward to seeing you guys. You'll be there for the end of year banquet. It's almost like you planned it that way.
Almost. Well, Vicky won't be there. I'll be there by myself.
No, he's
she's-
going to go out with his guy friends.
That's right. Me and the
That's
boys.
okay.
I got
Nothing wrong with a
family.
guys' weekend.
No, for sure. For sure. It's awesome.
Yep.
So one thing you brought up that I thought we could get into, because you have to do it on a daily basis when we're at the track. What's the difference between instructing like an HPDE 1 versus trying to instruct somebody at the higher levels?
So it's A, the amount of input you can give, and B, how you can give it. DE1 students have so much to process, particularly one that has no background in motorsports, no background in riding dirt bikes or driving jet skis and no background in any kind of limit handling, essentially, right? Those are the ones that you've really got to dial it back and keep it to the basics. You can't give them a bunch of input and talk about the previous turn because they're so hyper focused on the turn we're coming up to. You can't have, at least in most of them, there's some instances where they have the bandwidth, they've got the background, and you can kind of have a bit of a conversation. But for the ones that are super green, you've really got to choose what you say, how you say it, and you almost have to add certain inflections or rhythms, if you will, to what you're saying. So when I was instructing ones, it was brakes, right? And you kind of have that urgency, right? But if it was gas or ease on the throttle, you kind of draw the ease on out, but you keep that same rhythm, that same tone for everything. So even if they don't hear the verbiage you're using, they eventually pick up on the tone and the rhythm you're using, right? And it still makes it to the gummy bit between the ears. The biggest thing is you got to keep it simple, man. Like I had well, and you can't be afraid to pull them into the pits and make sure they're gonna understand, because I had one guy, first DE1 student I ever had, and he was a good guy and ended up being a great student by the end of the weekend. But so first session's always double yellow. We're not doing anything crazy. We're just pointing out the corner workers. Here's how the track goes, blah 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 blah, right? But second session's our first hot session, and he's got a 2013 body style GT 500.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, he'd never been to a track before, never been wide open throttle in that car before. His wife bought him the track weekend as an anniversary present because he'd always talked about wanting to take it to the track. So, we're cruising around the track and we take a lap or two, and he still had not been wide open throttle. And, I'm over here, give it some gas, go ahead. And we get to the back straight, and I was like, put the foot to the floor. Let's see what this thing can do. He puts the foot to the floor, and it's a GT 500. It's got 500 plus horsepower, and it just takes off, right? And he's sitting here, and when I knew I lost him was when he started giggling, just right. And I'm like, oh no,
oh, this is not good.
Yeah, well, so we crest the kink, and I'm like, okay, start getting ready to brake. He's still giggling, foot to the floor. We're coming up on, in my mind, the imaginary 8, which in a car like that with a DE1, I'm usually choosing like the 7,
right?
Especially for first hot session of the weekend, right? And I was like, okay, brakes, and I actually ended up having to hit him in the leg for him to snap out of it and hear me. He hammered on the brakes, and we, by some grace of God, made that corner. And that's when I had to pull him into the pits. And I was like, look, I understand this is fun. I understand you're having a good time. You're experiencing something you've never done before. But had I not gotten through to you, we would have sailed this into that kitty litter and possibly hit that wall. Because that does happen. If you've ever seen the pros, that if they lose brakes coming into China Beach, that kitty litter is it might as well not be there. You still end up
it's everywhere.
Yeah. but not enough to stop you if you're full bore.
Yeah.
No, it's more of a suggestion to slow down at that point. But so I was like, I know you don't want to take this nice, shiny, pretty car home on a wrecker, nor do you want to end up in a hospital. I don't want to end up in a hospital. So I need you to listen to me, or I will not instruct you for the rest of the weekend. And, that's something a lot of instructors are afraid to do because, oh man, they paid a lot of money to be here. I just need to make sure that they have a good time. It's like, well, they can have a good time as long as you keep it on your terms, right? You just need to make sure they listen. So that was the closest I ever got to saying I was done with a student, and it happened to be my first time with a student, right? First DE1. It was a hell of a initiation, if you will. But after that, he listened to everything I said. He came up to speed very quickly, and he had a great time regardless. It just took that one come to Jesus moment, like, look, you need to listen to really bring him back to reality. But the DE1s, man, especially with ones like that, you got to keep the inputs small. You got to keep them concise, and then you really kind of have to limit the line talk and the in-depth talk about how they're applying the gas and the brakes, etc., for after the session. Like, you can make small line tweaks and stuff as you're on course, but they really aren't going to retain it until you can sit trackside with them after the fact, pull out a track map and say, look, you're doing this, I need you to do this. Right. Oh, that's what you were talking about, right? They're at that level where they're not going to pick paint mark on the pavement as their turn-in point. They're not going to pick the Cooper sign coming into keyhole as their turn-in point. They don't have the bandwidth for that. They see brake markers, they see cones for apex and exit, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Right. You're lucky if they see that. And then there, you also get the ones that are hyper focused on the mirrors because they don't want to be in the way. I'm in a Miata. There's Corvettes out here. Doesn't matter. They'll get by you. It's you do you. But those are the other struggle ones. Is they get so focused on I don't want to be in the way. You're not going to be in the way. We're going to help you not be in the way. Just drive, please.
Yeah. Don't worry about them behind you. It's a non-passing zone. They can't pass you. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
What about helping the advanced student? What do you do for those guys or girls?
The advanced student, it's more of a lot of times it's like I had alluded to earlier, it's the braking application start and end. Usually it's small line tweaks because by the time I get them in fours, they know roughly how to pick a track apart, either via a map or watching videos of similar cars, or maybe they've been there before and they've got a good groundwork laid down, right? But most of the time, if it's not skill based, if they have the skill, it's confidence. Like I've got one guy I'm working with right now, and I won't say his name just for anonymity, but he's got the skill, he's got the capability, he just doesn't have the confidence in his capabilities. So I've been working and coaching with him to get him up to speed. And I mean, it started at the beginning of the year, and we've progressed, and he's been at every event throughout the year thus far, and he's come a really long way. He's really the last couple of events, he's really started to gain some confidence in himself, where he's making those passes. He's not a moving roadblock. He's hanging with some people and air quote dog fighting, if you will. I mean, as much as you can in HPDE, right? He's really started to gain that skill set. And I mean, he already had the driving skills down. He already knew how to pick the line apart. And granted, I do still have to make a couple of tweaks here and there, depending how fresh he is to the track. But it was, for him specifically, it was getting the confidence up. And he's almost there now to where I don't even know if I need to be in the car with him anymore. I've actually kind of dialed it back at the last couple of events, and I'll only hop in with him maybe once throughout the entire weekend. He'll still have me drive his car 1 or 2 sessions just so he can see what I'm doing versus him, and also get him some data. But the advanced students, it's really just little things, man. Like, confidence to me is a little thing, because all I have to do is just show you have the ability. Start and end of braking is a little thing, because you already have brake pressure down. You know how to brake. You know how to handle the car if you come in too hot or too slow. I just need to show you how to do it efficiently.
Right.
It's just little knob tweaks is the thing I tell most people. You've got this giant switchboard and everything's been tuned in just perfectly for this concert event, right? But you just got a couple of little knobs you got to tweak down to get the sound just right, and the sound being their driving.
Right. Yeah, most of my experience instructing has always been with the HPDE ones, but occasionally I get in there with somebody better, and it's sometimes you're just sitting there going, looking for something, because it's like most of it's pretty good. So it's hard to find sometimes. It's just like there's something that doesn't feel right, and trying to figure it out sometimes is tricky.
And that's where the butometer, as I call it, comes into play. Like, they don't have, especially new students, but sometimes even in advanced students, it's not seasoned enough or calibrated enough, if you will, for them to pick up on certain things. And that's where, beginner students, you can't really do it because they need the input at all times. But advanced students, if I'm riding with them, I'll give them the spiel right up front on grid. Like, hey, I'm just going to sit over here for the first couple of laps. I'm going to assess. There's nothing meant by it. I'm not testing you or anything. I'm just letting you get up to speed, get warmed up, and seeing where I think I can help you. And that's where I'm using my bodometer and my visuals. Okay, feels like the car has more there. Let's see if it feels consistent elsewhere. And I start picking apart what the car's grip level is, right? Because there's a lot of times where I've never been in the car before. I don't know what it's capable of, so I have to assess what it's capable of before I can start giving you inputs. And usually I can get that within a couple of laps. And I'm not saying I'll know it's 100% potential, but I can tell if it's being underdriven or not.
Right. Yep.
So, and that's something for you as an instructor. It just comes with time. You know,
Mhm.
I've calibrated mine through driving, but I've also instructed a ton where, you know, sit in right seat, you can still feel what the car is capable of. Like I instruct with the performance driving team here at GM, where, you know, on a Saturday we'll sit in a car for a lot of runs, because, you know, we'll have 40 or so people show up and everybody will get 4 or 5 runs, and I'll be instructing, let's say 15 of them, 10,
Wow.
10 to 15 of them. So you'll get a lot of runs to sit right seat.
Yeah.
So it's just seat time. That's what we tell everybody, right? From DE1 all the way through advanced is seat time is seat time. Doesn't matter if you're left seat, right seat, back seat, seat time, seat time.
Well, speaking as a person who has experienced the, hey, I'm not going to say anything for the first 2 laps with you, you do it quite well, and it's not off-putting at all. It's just like, you know, when we got to, I think it was lap 4 and you still hadn't said anything, I was just like, is this thing on? Am I totally good, or am I totally suck? Yeah, so it was fine though. It was
Yeah, I do that specifically just because if I'm giving you inputs right away and I don't even know what the car is capable of, you know, I'm not necessarily going to lead you astray, but it may not be the most beneficial. So, you know, I sit there, I let you and the car get warmed up, and I'm over here just assessing the car, not you specifically, and just what the car is capable of. And I take notes of where you're braking or where you're turning in, or, you know, things of that nature, combined with what I'm feeling from the car. And that's when I actually do start giving the input. You know, that's okay. I've got a pretty good handle on what the car can do. I've got a pretty good handle on why it's doing it based on what you're doing. Let's see what we can do, right?
Yep. And apparently, all right, Miss Vicky, this is a quiz for you. What was my problem? It was at Mid Ohio. Where did Brandon find my issue?
I don't know. I don't know if I got too much into detail with it.
No, you didn't. I'm just guessing. You know, Mid Ohio. Where do you think Bill was having trouble? You're failing at this game.
Yeah, I am. I don't know.
Okay, very well. It was going into China Beach. I just wasn't getting it right. We figured it out though.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Very well. Brandon.
Yes, sir.
If people want to follow you, follow along, see what you're up to, get some follow along internet stalking done with you. Do you do the Instagram, the Facebook, the keep it private, nobody knows?
The
Facebook. The Facebook.
Yeah.
The Facebook.
Well, I mean, sound it out. Face a book. It's right there.
No, I mean, I have Facebook. That's where I've been posting all the build updates for my car and whatnot. It's just Brandon Wilson. If it's a guy in a black helmet and race suit, there's a good chance it's me. If there's a lot of NASA Great Lakes mutual friends, good chance it's me.
And it is.
I have an Instagram, but I don't post anything to it. I use it just to look at funny videos and whatnot. So you can look me up if you want, but you're not going to really see anything.
Well, we do appreciate all your time, and we will be bothering you. And I would like to reserve at least one ride with all of you on Sunday for NCM. We'll work it out later. We'll figure that out. But yeah. I will be seeing you there, and can't wait. Can't make the Autobahn due to a conflict on our end, but we will make it to NCM.
Cool. Yeah. We'll see you there, and yeah, just let me know when you want me to hop in, and we'll make it happen.
No worries. The priority is always if somebody else needs it. I just kind of, I always want it. So no worries. Well,
yeah, not a problem. We'll make it happen.
All right. Thank you, Brandon. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. It was fun.